So in this video, we're going to take a look at rounding to different amounts of decimal places. In a previous video, we actually looked at rounding to the nearest whole number. So if you want to go back and check that video out first, I'll leave a link for it in the description and also a card in the top corner. So for this first couple of questions, we need to round them to one decimal place. So when we round to one decimal place, that means we're going to have just one digit after the decimal point. So for this first question, we've got 3.94. So the first digit after the decimal point is actually a 9. So what I'm now going to do is put a straight line in between this digit and the next digit. So now we're going to decide if that 9 is going to stay as a 9 or round up. And to do that, we use the digit on the right hand side of the line we've just drawn, which in our case is a 4. We're then going to follow our rounding rule. If this digit is 5 or more, we're going to round up the previous digit, and if it's less than 5, we're going to keep the previous digit the same. So because we've got a 4 and it's less than 5, we're going to keep the previous digit the same. So the previous digit, being the one we were looking at on the left hand side of the line, which was our 9, is going to remain as a 9. So 3.94 rounded to one decimal place would just be 3.9. So for this next question, we've got 15.281, and we're going to round to one decimal place again. So the first decimal place in this number would actually be the 2. So we're going to put our line between the 2 and the next digit, which is the 8. So then we're going to decide if we're going to keep that 2 as a 2 or round it up to a 3. And we can figure that out by looking at this digit on the right hand side, which is an 8. And then we follow our rounding rule again. Because our 8 is more than 5, we're going to round up the previous digit. Well, the previous digit was our 2, so we're then going to round that up to a 3. So 15.281 would round up to 15.3. So we can follow the same method when we're also rounding to two decimal places. So for this first question, we've got 3.029. So because we're rounding to two decimal places, well, our first decimal place would be our 0. Our second decimal place would be our 2. So this time we're going to put our line between our 2 and the next digit, which is our 9. So now we want to decide whether that 2 on the left-hand side of the line is going to remain as a 2 or round up to 3. And we do that by looking at the digit on the right-hand side, which is a 9. So because it's a 9, that means we're going to round up our 2 to a 3. So 3.029 would round up to 3.03. And again, for this next example, we've got 7.821. We need to round it to two decimal places. Well, 8's in the first decimal place, 2's in the second decimal place, which is what we're looking for. So I'm going to put my line between that 2 and the next digit, which is our 1. So to decide if that 2 is going to stay the same, we look at the digit to the right, which is our 1. And because that's less than 5, we're going to keep the previous digit the same, so the 2 stays as a 2. So 7.821 would round to 7.82. And we can use this method for any amount of decimal places. So hopefully that made sense. We're now going to try this method with a few more examples. So feel free to pause the video here and have a go at these, and we'll go through the solutions in just a few moments. Okay, for this first lot of questions, we're rounding to one decimal place. So for this first example of 24.59, I'm looking at the digit in the first decimal place, which is that 5. So I'm going to put my line between that 5 and the next digit, which is our 9. So because it's a 9, that means I'm going to round up the previous digit. So our 5 would actually become a 6. So our 24.59 would actually round up to 24.6. We've now got 1.31. So again, the 3 is in the first decimal place, so I'm then going to put my line between that 3 and the next digit, which is a 1. So we look at that 1, that means we're going to keep the previous digit the same. So that 1.31 will round down to 1.3. Okay, we're now going to look at rounding to two decimal places. So for this first example, we've got 6.397. Well, we've got the 3 in the first decimal place. The 9 in the second decimal place is what we're looking for. So I'm going to draw my line between that 9 and the next digit, which is the 7. So we look at that 7. It's bigger than 5, so that means we're going to round up the previous digit. So in this case, the 9 would actually round up to 10. So what we do in this case is we put a 0 in the units column, and then the 1 from the 10 we'd carry over into the tenths column, so the 3 would become a 4. So we can quite clearly see here that 6.397 rounded up to 2 decimal places would actually be 6.40. Okay, for this next one we've got 18.791. So again, our 7's in our first decimal place, our 9's in our second decimal place, so we're going to put our line between our 9 and our 1. So then we look at that 1, because it's less than 5, that means we're going to keep the previous digit the same. So this 18.791 would round down to 18.79. And for these last couple of questions, we're going to be rounding to 3 decimal places. So first of all, we've got 8.2955. So again, we've got a 2 in the first decimal place, a 9 in the second decimal place. That first 5 is in the third decimal place, so I'm going to put my line between the third decimal place and the next digit, which is a 5. We then look at that 5 on the right-hand side of the line, and because it's a 5, that means we're going to round up the previous digit. So the 5 on the left-hand side of that line is going to become a 6. So for this question, we'd have that 8.2955 would actually round up to 8.296. And for this very last example, we've got 25.2914. So again, we've got 2 in the first decimal place, 9 in the second decimal place, 1 in the third decimal place. So I'm going to put my line between the 1 and the 4. So then we look at the digit on the right-hand side. It's a 4. So that means I'm going to keep the previous digit the same. So the 1 remains as a 1. So this 25.2914 would round down to 25.291. So well done if you followed along with those questions. And that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please feel free to leave a like and consider subscribing. If there are any topics you'd like me to go through next, then please just let me know down in the comments, and I'll try to make some videos on those topics as soon as possible. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.